Hey, how's it going? It's Jim. Today we're going to dive into my full review on the Speedway Leger Pro from Minimotors USA, MSRP of $1,399. Really a scooter that is boasting some crazy advertised range of 45 miles and a good top speed of 31 miles per hour. So a lot of performance packed into a pretty compact package. I'm going to show you how this thing folds and then go in close with the camera, and then we're going to go out and ride, and I'll talk through some of my test results. So folding the Leger Pro is pretty easy. Just got the quick release handle, drop it down. You got the sliding collar mechanism handles, which there's an internal grub screw so you can get most of the play out of them. But you know, these have their own positive and negatives, as we'll talk as we're riding. You can drop both of those down. You just have to make contact with that lever either with your foot or hand while pushing forward, because you're basically taking pressure off that mechanism and popping it down. And there you have something pretty compact. Advertised weight was 45 pounds. I measured it quite a bit more than that. I measured it at 50 pounds. So that's fairly hefty, and that bar right here has got a big diameter. So carrying it by this is not all that easy, but it feels very solid. Like when you pick it up by this, you're like, man, that's a solid feeling scooter. Front deck lights, this is a light that turns, well, I guess the power's still on, so you can see it powers up, as well as a side indicator light and your charge port. I've always liked the way the Leger has their deck, where it's got grip tape and these kind of grooves that work really well. And the Speedways, just, they seem like they're build quality is quite good. Kickstand, you got your rear motor. Most of the good stuff is on the other side. Minimotors rates their motors by peak voltage, and I'll put a little formula on the screen on how that works. Plenty of power. I mean, it's a solid motor. So coming back here, we got the drum brake here on the rear, 8.5 inch by 2 inch tire. Separating rims, so tire changes are a little easier. Solid. The fender doesn't really move a whole lot. Good stainless fasteners. Also minders for the power cable coming in here. The rear brake light functionality at all times. You can see it does a little spiral pattern. You got your brace on the back side of the deck, is also pretty nice for, especially if you're trying to ride with a little more spirited handling. Back to the same thing on the deck. Again, nice management of the cables. I just think it's a clean look with the Speedway Leger Pro. And then you got a front drum brake, which just works real well. The previous iteration of the Leger Pro did not have a brake on the front, and I'll talk about my braking results, but these simple drum brakes are nice, very easy to adjust. It's an easy way to go. So the front wheel with the drum brake here, the front wheel, I'm incorrect, it does not look like it separates, so that could make tire changes a little more difficult on this front tire, to be aware of that. Nice little fender. It does a pretty good job with coverage. Not too much splashing gets by here. The champion of this scooter is right here. 52 volts, 25.6 amp hours, almost over 1,300 watt hours of Panasonic cells in the deck. I'll just give you a little hint. I exceeded this 45 miles of advertised range. So this thing goes. If you're into range and scooters, I'm sure you heard of the eMove Cruiser. I think if you're looking at the eMove Cruiser, you probably should also look at this one, because there's some differences, of course, but I think there's some similarities, and so, you know, this might fit you, the other one might, so it's worth looking at both. Folding this back upright, you just simply press this lever down here and push it up, snap it into place, and I'll give you a look here at how the handlebars are set up. That brace back there works actually really well as a handle too, so picking this up with two hands is kind of nice that way. Of course, that simple collar comes into place. 21.5 inch wide handlebars. They adjust from 28.5 inches from the deck up to 38.5 at the maximum measurement mark there. I'm 5 foot 10 inches and I have it at the maximum, and it'd kind of be nice if you could get a couple more inches of height on those handlebars, but I think most people work pretty well. The deck down there is 19 inches long by 8 inches wide. Gives you quite a bit of foot positions, even though it's not as long as some. And that doesn't include that little angle brace that can be nice for stretching your calf out, for bracing when you're trying to get a little more aggressive with it. Cheap slip-on grips, not my favorite. I would recommend changing them quickly. Little notification bell. Wait, that's what you got to hit on this video. And then there's the motor cutoff here, so when you hit the brakes, one cuts power to the motor and gauges the electronic braking. The good old i3 display, which is one of the few displays that is actually visible in bright sunlight, even though it's black and white and quite basic. There's a lot of functionality in here. You can do stop, have it live from a stop, or kick starting, change the degree of electronic braking, acceleration, percent power. There's a lot you can change. This is basically all the performance settings are maxed out, and because I'm going to give you a top speed here in a minute. And yeah, will be riding like this with it a lot of times, just so you can see this. My more comfortable position as I'm riding is down like this. I do have cruise control engaged, and I know some people aren't huge fans of cruise control. I am. I really like not having to hold the throttle the whole time. All right, one more look at the Leger Pro here. I'll put in some night footage of how these lights project at night. It actually, the little side indicator light really does help quite a bit. Of course, like most of these scooters, those front deck lights are just lighting a little bit of path and giving awareness to you, or of you, to other people. If you're really wanting to see, you really need a handlebar light or a helmet light. So just as a note, I have the tires at 45 PSI, just a little bit below their cold rating of 50. It was already about 90 degrees here, so I didn't feel like I wanted to go full on pressure. Plus, for my first ride video that I'll link at the back of this video, the ride on this scooter is quite firm. You'll hear some squeaking. There's a spring suspension in the rear, and I'm going to tip it over for your benefit. And you can see there are two springs, and they are adjustable. So I will probably want to loosen these for myself. And also, these springs in that position tend to accumulate dust and get pretty squeaky, as this one is already doing. And that can be alleviated with like some spray Tri-Flow or some lubricant that will help not attract dust. So I wouldn't recommend WD-40 for this application. i3 display is very easy to use. This circle button toggles you through your speed limits. I already set it up for miles per hour. You can change your units to your liking. That is a current voltage. Mode gets you your lapse time. Current, trip, odometer, so I've ridden the scooter 64 miles, and charge cycles. So one of my critiques of the i3 display is to get into the menu, all it takes is a long press on the mode button, unlike some other scooters where you press two buttons. And I've seen a number of folks, especially if they have younger riders on these scooters, where some menu items got kind of messed up a little bit, and it can change how your speed's reading out, how your battery's indicating, and actually you can actually get it so it's not registering speed at all, and so that the scooter starts shutting itself off. All right, we're going to start out with a tiny amount here of non-paved path riding, which is not this strong suit. So here we are at the top speed of speed limit 1, somewhere 11, 12. This is actually a good speed for riding around people, you know. It's real mellow, take your time kind of deal. So I'm in cruise control, so I'm going to then hit to the speed limit 2. Now the speed limit on this path is 15, so I'm only going to briefly go until show you what speed limit 2 gets you. You probably heard through the grass, and right now there's a little noise from the indicator bell. There's also a little rattling noise from these collars. So it's not the quietest scooter in the world to the ear of the rider. But to me, the sound of the Minimotors motor is very pleasant. It has a very nice little whir. I've always been a fan of it. Let's see where we get. So display shows 24. That's in speed limit 2. We're going to check what the top speed is in speed limit 3. I don't even actually know what it is. So, you know, we're going to find out. Acceleration wise, this scooter's pretty dang spunky. For a single motor scooter, it's the second fastest one I've tested to date. I'll put some comparable scooters. These are all ones I've tested, and I averaged this on 4 acceleration tests, just for either price or spec comparison's sake. And braking wise, the drum brakes, some people are skeptical of those. I think for an 8.5-inch tire scooter, it works really well, because sometimes with the disc brake, which is not much smaller than the tire, you get so much braking force, it's really easy to lock up the wheels. With the drum brake, you don't get quite as extreme braking ability, but it's a lot easier to control. So the braking on this scooter is kind of in the middle of the pack, still pretty good at a little over 15 feet, and that's from 15 miles per hour. Above 15 miles per hour, it's sort of like it sort of become more about skill. So if you're a little concerned about the drum brakes, I like how they're sealed and really little maintenance, and I find them to be perfectly acceptable to me. So if I'm wanting to really ride above 20 miles per hour, I don't do that on the bike path. To me, that's more of a bike lane thing where class 3 e-bikes can be. So that's where we're going to show you where the top speed is. Now I'm just going to talk briefly about my range results, which was impressive. So I rode about 25 miles and I still had 65% battery. So I'm like, well, heck. I was going to go play tennis, so I went ahead and rode the scooter back and forth to play tennis, which was another over 23 miles round trip. So I put on, I think it was 48.6 miles, that's by GPS. And I did have to go the last couple miles. I reduced my speed because I could tell my power was dropping. I think that was effectively to more or less zero battery. So what does a lot of range enable you to do? Well, one, it can let you go a long ways in a single trip. But I think the real power of it is if you needed to grab your scooter for like a quick errand that's maybe 5 to 10 miles and you don't have it fully charged. Well, with this much battery, as long as you have a decent amount of charge, you can still use it. So this should give you a little feel for how the scooter handles, a little kind of sidewalk expansion joints here. I didn't realize there wasn't a little hop down curb. Here's a bigger one. Oh, you feel that one pretty good. I don't get a lot of comfort from the little front suspension. It's a pretty firm riding scooter. Like I feel like it's better ride than solid tires, but not quite as much as I would expect. The suspension is real firm. In the back it's adjustable, so hopefully I can get that dialed in. All right, let's see what we got for top speed here. I'm using that back plate to anchor on. All right, well, so speedometer wise, I got up to 31. I started to feel a little less comfortable about 28 on this. Some scooters They just lend themselves to riding faster and feeling comfortable. And it was okay. I'm going up a little bit of a hill here. I'll put in my hill climb results. Climb pretty well. Single motor scooters aren't really hill climbing beasts like a dual motor would be. For most people, I think it'd be acceptable. The deck is 8 inches off the ground with 5 inches of clearance, so it's a little too high to really add assistance up a hill. And after a few miles of this, you're going to start to feel a lot of vibration and numbness in your hands. So that's not the greatest thing to ride on. You probably want something with a little more suspension, maybe bigger tires, if you're riding on something like this a lot. What do you get with smaller tires? You get a little smaller form factor, and potentially saving a little bit of weight. They don't do as well over uneven terrain. They don't go over bumps quite as well. They tend to transmit more vibrations through because of that. So it's a give and take. And if some people like the tubeless idea versus tube, I really favor scooters with separating rims, because to me that's the real key. Changing any tire, basically under a 20-inch diameter tire, is a pain. And when you're having to pry them off the rims, it makes that pain even more. Continuing my ride here, I am noticing there is a bit of flex in the stem, and it does not actually seem to be at the hinge points. To me, it looks like there's actually a little movement in just the metal itself, especially the extending part here that's not, all that big a diameter. This is rated for a 265-pound rider. I'm nearly 100 pounds less than that. I think a rider at the top end of the weight range might start to feel some of those stem flex type things more than I am. So if you're somebody that's really particular to that, it's just something to be aware of. So the cruise control right now is holding right at 16. We'll see what the GPS is, just to get a feel for how accurate this is. The i3 displays are typically quite accurate, even at the actual tire size setting. Sometimes you have to fidget with the tire size to kind of get your speedometer to be right. Here's another good way to tell we got some significant range. I've been tracking this trip with my watch. I got 8.2 miles. I got 8.2 miles in, and the battery is still showing 100% battery under load. A lot of times they'll start dropping down more under load than at rest, but still, the fact that I just dropped at 98 there. So when you're basically at 10 miles and the battery hasn't dropped at all, it means you got a pretty good amount of range. Wait, who am I kidding? It means you got an excellent amount of range. The handlebars are 21.5 inches wide. I have them at the highest setting of 38.5 inches. They go all the way down to 28, positionable anywhere within there. The rotation is limited at 50 and 60 degrees, right and left. So a little bit of a safety there. You can't turn it past 90 and get the old Superman show going on. The grips are definitely on the short side. Slip-on grips, these grips are not awesome. They're definitely a low light of the scooter. And then if you put on a longer grip, because these are so short, you almost need bike grip shift grips. But if you go with a longer grip, you have to move your brake levers and everything over, and so you sometimes will be unable to fold your handlebars. Well, thanks for hanging out with me and taking a look here at Speedway Leger Pro. If you have any comments, questions, put them down below. I try to answer every comment, except some that are kind of a little jacked up. But anyway, it's a solid scooter. I like the solid build. Rides a little firm. But man, if you're after range, this has really got some range in a pretty compact, you know, package. So, you know, hopefully this ride footage helped you out a little bit. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, give it a thumbs up. All that helps the channel, and really appreciate everybody's support out there. I never even thought I'd reach 2,000 subscribers. Now I'm a little bit above that, and let's see where it can go. So thanks a lot. Talk to you again soon. Hey, how's it going? It's Jim. And bam! You know, this should Popular Scout. Grunt transition. I'm gonna go talk to my chickens.
Yeah. Oh, no way. It's pretty neat.
Catch the wave, feel the